Welcome everybody. All right, this is an historic day, one could say. Been a lot of big moments throughout history. This might be a top 10 moment. We don't know. But welcome to the Unofficial Sage Podcast. I said we don't know, by the way, if this is going to be a top 10, so don't hold me to that. I'm just saying let's not rule anything out. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us kind of on this trip, on this journey. For those of you who don't know, my name is Doug Lewis. I work with a company called the Visionary Group. And 100% of my clients are accounting firms, coast to coast here in the U.S., a little bit of international work as well. I do a lot of M&A consulting for these firms, putting transactions together, bringing in as a third-party deal consultant. That's about half my business. The other half is I get really deep with these accounting firms, figuring out how they can make more money, how they can be more profitable, how they can add advisory service lines. And a big part of that is utilizing tools like the Sage ecosystem. So this is really, really exciting for me, honestly. I'm going to go through kind of what's on our ledger here today to get everybody up to speed. And by the way, if you hate horrible puns, this might not be the show for you, because I know me and my co-hosts are probably going to let quite a few fly here throughout this entire journey together. So just buckle up for that. So really what we're going to hit today, this is just the intro. Who are we? Who are the two people here alongside me that are really running the show and the brains and the beauty behind this operation? Why you should listen, all the fun stuff, what we're going to cover, the whole soup to nuts of what the Unofficial Sage Podcast is going to be about, why it's important, and why I said, again, it might be, this might be one of the most historical moments in history, just from this first episode. So listen in. I'm going to kick it over to one of my co-hosts here. Emily, who are you? Why are you here? Give the people what they want.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Emily Madere. I work for Eisner Amber, and we are a tax consulting advisory outsourcing firm. I work in our Sage Intacct practice. We are a VAR, that stands for Value Added Reseller. And I help people move from smaller systems like QuickBooks, old Sage products, a number of smaller systems onto Sage Intacct. So I am in the day-to-day of what people are asking for when they are looking to move new systems. If they need automation, they need to be able to work in the cloud, they need integrations. That is what I live in. That is what I breathe day to day.
And Emily, that is perfect. You dropped the first acronym there, and I want to be very careful with this thing. Everyone listening, we are going to be throwing out acronyms left, right, and center on this podcast. And we will explain everything in great detail. And if we don't, I actually had an interesting idea before you let everybody know who you are on this thing. Every time one of the three of us throws out an acronym and doesn't explain what that acronym is, we should start a joint fund where we toss in $20. I don't know what we're going to do with that fund after a certain amount of episodes. Maybe we give it away to a listener. I don't know. That would be fun. But regardless, I want to make sure that we're clearly explaining everything step by step throughout this whole process, because in the Sage world, in the accounting world, in the business world alone, and there's so many acronyms that everybody just loosely throws around. I promise you, listeners, we will explain everything in detail. And if we don't, let us know. Shoot us an email, give us a call us out in the comments somewhere. Make sure that you say, well, you owe $20 to the joint fund. That's going to go to one of the listeners at some point. And we will flush out that idea a little bit further. But before we get there, Matt, who are you? Tell the people who you are.
Well, before we even go there, I think Doug just did something. He did $20, and I think me and Emily have more likelihood to use acronyms than Doug. So he's already setting himself up to not have to pay as much. I don't know how I feel about this.
You're right. We should up it to $50. That's what I heard. I don't know.
Well, thanks, Doug. Thanks. That's not the direction I was trying to take that, but that's just A-okay with me. My name is Matthew Lescault. I'm the president and CEO of Lescault and Walterman, as well as AW Cape and Applico. We're a group of companies that are Sage partners, both here in the U.S. and in Africa, Middle East, headquartered in Cape Town in South Africa, for those that are interested in our actual location. But we have an opportunity as an organization to focus on software selection, implementation of that software, and we're really a Sage-focused organization. We do outsourced accounting here in the U.S., and we do outsourced HR and payroll services in Africa and Middle East.
Beautiful. And we're going to hit a couple just intro things here, like I mentioned at the top of this thing. Really, why are we doing this thing? Who's it meant for? What can everybody expect listening to this thing? And it will get better, I can promise you that. I'm looking at you, Matt. You need to pick up your game already. So to kick it off, let's let people know, why are we even doing this thing? What is our why for getting the Unofficial Sage podcast off the ground? Emily, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so whenever I was approached to do this podcast, I thought it was a really interesting idea. So, for those of you who don't know, I put LinkedIn videos talking about Sage Intacct out into the universe, into the internet. And I thought this was a really great opportunity to kind of expand the reach of Sage because Sage has a lot of great, awesome products and functionalities that can help a lot of people. So this is a great opportunity for me to kind of share what I know about Sage and hopefully help people in their day-to-day lives.
I appreciate that. That was actually much more thought out than I imagined it being. So that's great. I love that. Matt, why are you here? Why are you excited about this thing? Why are we doing this?
Well, to be fair, first, it was Emily and David Leary who reached out to me and my team and said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing this. Would you be interested?" And I got to meet Emily at the conference at Sage Transform, and I got the opportunity to meet David at the same time. And I really thought that there was a really great opportunity to educate around what is Sage as an organization, what product Sage brings to the table, and most importantly, their flagship product, Sage Intacct. And there's many products that Sage provides. We will get into those, but there will be a major focus on the Intacct product because it is what Sage is launching globally. And for me, and my opportunity from a perspective of being in the Africa Middle East region as well as the U.S. region, and seeing really the development and push that Sage is giving and investing into Intacct, and then on top of it to realize how underutilized it can be in the marketplace, and that there's just an opportunity for firms, businesses, entrepreneurs to get so much more out of their system. I thought this was a great landscape to do that with, and it really was exciting for me. And then, as you know, Doug, I called you up and I said, "Doug, you want to do this with us?" And maybe you'll regret it, but you decided, yeah, well, let's make this happen.
Yeah, I was.
Doug was like, no, I don't want to do that. And Matt was like, please, we need you.
Well, for those that don't know, of course, who would know? I met Doug through his work with Visionary Group, and when I was looking at doing some acquisitions. Me and Doug didn't end up getting to do a deal together because I made the acquisition of the firms in South Africa. But the insights that the Visionary Group has around the industry was always of value to me. And so when I was talking with Emily about this podcast, I said, there's some really great insights that Doug can bring to this. And you know what? He's kind of entertaining at times. And I won't admit that many more times.
Well, that's good because this isn't recorded and there won't be a bunch of listeners who will hear you say that. No,
A bunch of
just
listeners.
too many to
bunch.
count. Too many to count, one could say. No, I appreciate that, Matt. And honestly, that all feeds nicely into why I'm here. This is number one. This is going to be fun. I mean, this isn't just going to be boring, dry, go through software implementation and blah 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 blah. I mean, we're going to put out actual thought leadership out there on how firms are taking advantage of the Sage ecosystem to not only turn a profit, but add value to the client base. I think that's huge. That's exciting for me. And honestly, in all of the M&A work that I do for accounting firms, one of the most requested items is a thriving CAS practice, CAS, Client Accounting Services practice. No $50 in the bucket for me there. And most, or not most, but a lot of firms that we see who have these thriving practices are utilizing Sage Intacct to do so and to build that out. And I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but that's always really high on the list for acquirers, what they're looking for when they're looking at targets, they're looking at sourcing transactions, and ultimately putting values on a lot of these firms across the country. So this is hitting home to me. The whole Sage world, the Sage ecosystem, the Sage heartbeat, all that fun stuff. And I can promise everybody who's listening, this is not just going to be a Buy Sage podcast. It's not an advertisement for Sage. It's not all roses out there. We'll tell you what we think is good, bad, and ugly about Sage, some of the competitors in the landscape, comparing products, all this fun stuff back and forth. So it's not just going to be us up here saying, you should all buy Sage and it's the best thing since sliced bread. I can promise you that. But I'll step off
Hey,
my...
Doug,
Yes.
I got a question for you on that. In your work, do you see Sage Intacct in the marketplace for CAS departments more than, say, Dynamics and NetSuite?
I would say it's one of the leaders that we see across most departments. The challenge now we're seeing inside of a lot of accounting firms who have CAS departments is they're not all structured at all similarly, firm to firm. So some people hobble together different software programs, but the ones that we see are truly the most profitable, more often than not, are built on the Sage platform, which is what I like. But we'll define really what a CAS department is in a later episode, because that's a whole episode just on its own right there, because you have a million different opinions on what a CAS department is. But we will dive into that. But yes, more often than not, Sage is one of the most requested because it usually is one of the best software backbones to really build a CAS department on.
Well, it's sponsored by AICPA. One of the biggest reasons that we chose Sage Intacct as our platform for our CAS department.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've been a Sage Intacct VAR for over 10 years, and coming from, that accounting background, that was very important for us when we were partnering with the solution.
But Emily, I know we're going to do this in another episode, but let's be fair. Sage has a lot more products. You just want to do a quick spin off from the top of your head, just so we can give homage to that in a quick moment, and not make this the Sage Intacct or Unofficial Sage Intacct podcast.
Yeah. So Sage has a plethora of products underneath it. Some of their products include Sage 50, Sage 100, Sage 300, Sage Intacct, Sage X3.
Sage People, Sage
yes.
CRM, which I don't know where that's going. And then there's products all across the world, and we're not going to get into all of that. There's just not enough time in a day. But I thought it'd be a good thing. And Emily, you have a pretty good feel for that whole product listing. I thought it'd be
Yeah, and I mostly work in the accounting software space. So I normally work with, like I said, 300, 50, 100 Intacct.
Yep.
Well, that's actually a shockingly good segue, unplanned segue, Matt and Emily. I like that. Listen, who is this thing meant for? Who should listen? Who should tune in? Who should follow us? What type of people? What roles? What companies? Matt, what are your thoughts? Who is this really meant for?
Are you saying that everybody shouldn't listen to this? I mean, our children, our 10-year-olds, they would be really interested in this, wouldn't they?
I think everyone and their mother should be listening to this, but that's just my 2 cents. Who should tune in, Matt?
I'm not so sure that everybody would share that 2 cents. I really hope that we can bring a lot of great value to other Sage partners or firms or organizations looking to become Sage partners, their customers. I want this to be a place where our customers, as CAS firms, as tax firms, as consulting firms, can look to get additional information about the products being used on their behalf. And then end users being those businesses, those entrepreneurs, those CFOs that are using the product day to day and may not know the new things that are coming out, what's happening from a release side, what's happening from a marketplace partner side. I really hope we can hit all of that. And I keep saying hope. I have a lot of faith that that's what we're going to do. It's important to give homage to all of that in talking through what's available to the public.
I agree. And Emily, thoughts on who should really be listening from your point of view? I imagine it's a plethora of listeners out there.
Yes, it's a plethora. So I am speaking throughout this podcast to everyone Matt just mentioned, but I just want to shout out directly the people who are in that middle space between, they're not really a small business anymore. They're growing into something a little bit bigger. This is going to be a podcast for you, because we are going to talk about marketplace partners. We're going to talk about features and functionalities. We're going to hit on implementation of new software. We're going to be hitting on everything that you need to know when you are making a move on software. But I'm also really speaking to the people in this industry. Let's say, you're a mom listening to this podcast and your son or daughter is fixing to go to college. Ask them about getting an accounting degree because an accounting degree is much more than just doing tax audit or just accounting. It's technology focused now.
I like where you're going because if I think about the last 10 years in the accounting industry in a whole, how much it's changed. And so when we talk about that audience, it's also providing information about those changes. What has changed? What do we think is going to change? How are firms going to navigate new technology and the next iteration of whether it's client advisory services, general consulting, and so forth. And I know, Doug, you have thoughts and opinions galore on that. I don't know if I'm asking you to bring all of them right now, but I've seen a huge change. I started my company in late 2006, and it's just been an amazingly fast-paced environment of change from a technology approach and focus.
Yeah, if I could go back in time, I would go get an accounting degree.
You really want to do accounting?
No, she just said
Yeah.
she wants the degree. She's not going to do the accounting work. She just wants the
Well, I
paper.
kind of do accounting, but I think an accounting degree is valuable, especially for all the young people out there.
I mean, I love the part of solving the problems, listening to the clients, figuring out where their pain points are, and trying to help deliver solutions for them. That's what I love. If I get other people to do the actual accounting, that's great, but I have to know it. I mean, I do have to know it. And I think that's kind of, Emily's point here. For all those that are not listening, Emily's never going to be an accountant. I promise you.
Yeah, no, never, not coming for your job, I promise.
You actually brought up a really good point there, Matt. Kind of the rate of change in the industry right now in the accounting profession, to be specific. So, for whatever reason, different association groups, society groups, they asked me to come speak to their members. I can't figure out why. Like you said, I have a lot to say, but most of it doesn't hold any value. But every time that I go speak on what's happening in the M&A sector right now in the accounting world, or all the technological change, or the costs it takes to maintain all these different moving parts right now, it's changing at such a rapid pace right now. Honestly, in the last 12 to 24 months, there's been an uptick in how quickly everything's changing. So when I give a presentation right now, I'm very upfront with people that are saying, listen, if I gave this same presentation 3 months from now, it's probably going to be a different discussion, because that's how fast everything's changing right now in this industry. So keeping on top of the trends, all the updates, all the technological breakthroughs, all this fun stuff from an operating perspective, I think that's really what we're going to dive into as we bring in some experts here. So it's not just the three of us hacking this out, thank God, which kind of dives into another area that I think we should really jump into. But before we do that, Emily, a couple of moments ago, you threw out fixing, and I love that. I love that. You threw out fixing to go to college. Nobody knows where the three of us are headquartered and located. So maybe you want to hit that, Emily, because you're going to hear these
Yeah.
little different dialects
Yeah.
from the three of us.
Thanks for calling me out.
No, I love it. I love it.
I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so I'm in the boot. I'm in like the lower foot of the boot, kind of by the toes.
The best part, one could say. Matt, where are you at? Where are you headquartered? Where are you located?
Well, in this current moment, I'm in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. That's where I live and I am headquartered out of. My firm is completely remote. We have been since 2010, so there's not a ton of people here with me. That's has its benefits and kind of its loneliness at times. And I spend a lot of time in South Africa, obviously, with my team there.
And for those of you wondering, for my terrible accent and pasty complexion, I'm headquartered out of Chicago, and I do hear that I do have a Chicago accent. I don't hear it, but I don't know.
Just a little bit.
That's
I've heard more distinguished accents.
You really did call me out. Do I have an accent? Because I didn't realize
no,
I
it's
did.
the language. I love it.
Oh, the language.
I love it. Like you'll have different slang terms or different ways to say it. Like y'all down
Oh, yeah.
south.
It's very southern. My
Yeah.
EA is from Texas, and she says fixing all the time.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was not an attack. I just absolutely love it. I love talking to people
That's
with
okay.
different ways of expressing opinions. I think it's really fun to kind of mix things up. But
well, y'all will enjoy this. I'm going to be having red beans and fried chicken tonight, so I am looking forward to it.
you say
That
that
sounds
like it's a
good.
bad thing. I mean, that sounds
It's not. It's definitely
phenomenal.
not a bad thing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. But maybe we should touch in before we lose everyone's attention here. You know, what can the listeners expect moving forward? This is the intro episode. We're kind of laying out our agenda, what we're doing, who should listen, why, all this fun stuff. What should they expect from us? And, it's not just going to be the three of us. We're going to bring in top industry experts to chime in and actually add some legitimate insight. So it's not just the three of us hacks up here sharing our opinions to the world. So, Matt, what can everybody expect if they jump onto this journey with us?
Well, I was going to ask you, like, do we actually know what they're going to expect? But that's not fair, is it? We are going to be bringing people from Sage insiders that kind of know that the roadmap looks like, what's being invested on, trying to bring from different partner channels and product channels, so that we bring people that have far more detailed expertise than we do. I think that's where I see myself being able to bring some value from my connections with Sage. Doug, I think that your expertise and client base being the firms, you have a great opportunity to bring other partners, other consulting firms, accounting firms, tax firms to talk about what they've succeeded in. What am I missing there, Doug?
No, I'm sure you're missing quite a bit, but that's at least a good start. Emily, why don't you clean up Matt's mess on what people can maybe expect if they continue on this journey with us?
Yes. Well, you can definitely expect us to give $50 anytime someone uses an acronym. But, more importantly, you will hear from current clients who use these products. It's not going to be like you're Googling and finding upon a review. You can actually speak to these people or have us speak to these people who are using the software. But more importantly, after you listen to an episode, you are going to have a more robust knowledge of the Sage products and how to use them and how to talk to them with your colleagues. I think that's a very important point.
As well as catching some phenomenal puns throughout the process. So we will
Yes.
work those in, but we will be kind with them, so it's not just all puns. I can promise you. So
Well, it's understanding the ecosystem, right? That has a lot to do with it. And the ecosystem is, what is Sage, what connects with Sage, who connects with Sage, who cares about Sage, and we want to shed light on all that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And that's, again, it's almost like we scripted this out, which I can promise you we didn't, listeners. But Matt, that's an excellent segue into kind of the last piece I want to hit before we wrap this intro episode up. So maybe, Emily, you can take this kind of one first here. First episode, we haven't gone through any meat and potatoes yet in the Sage ecosystem. What's one takeaway you want to leave people with here today?
I think if you were to take away something from this episode, is strap in, get ready for a long ride, because you're going to learn a lot, you're going to laugh a lot, and you're going to make fun of us all together. We're going to make fun of each other, and just listen to the next episode.
Matt, do you have a takeaway for the listeners? She didn't say cry, by the way. So if you want to add cry a lot as well, that could work.
I mean, I don't think I could say it much better. I want the takeaway to be, tell us what you find most interesting and help us guide the information that is most meaningful to you as the listeners. So just as Doug suggested that if we give an acronym, we owe money, also chat with us. Tell us what questions that you have around the Sage ecosystem, the why we chose to be where we're at, the why we think this is important, all of those components. We want this to be about you, not about us.
And you can find us on LinkedIn. Message us.
Yeah, if you don't like the shirt I'm wearing, let me know. I'm not going to do anything about it, but hey, that's fine too. If you don't like,
For those who are listening, he's in like a gray polo, from what I can see.
astute observation. That is correct.
Look, I had to let them know.
No, it's good. They have to know what I'm wearing every single time. We should end the episode just describing my attire head to toe. I think the listeners would really enjoy that.
I'm not so sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, okay, maybe, you know what? We'll put it in the maybe pile for ideas. How about that? That's why we need the listeners to tell us what they want from us. What do you want to know? What do you want to talk about? All that fun stuff. So I think that's kind of a good cap on the initial episode here to kind of dip the toes in the water of the Unofficial Sage podcast. I would love to just end this thing with a dad joke, if that's okay with the two of you.
Please, let's
Yeah, what
hear
if I
it.
said no? What if I said no?
I'm still gonna do it, and I have final say on editing. No, not at all.
But wait a second. There's a reason why Doug has been nominated for the dad jokes.
There is. At the time of this taping, I have a 10-week-old at home, my first 10-week-old at home. So I'm exhausted, but I've really been trying to build up my dad joke library. So this is a good testing ground for me. I have a couple years before we can really understand what I'm saying. So I got to really figure out what works and doesn't work. This is like my open mic. I'm going to use this podcast for my open mic. So
is it a girl or a boy?
a little boy, little Leo, 10 weeks old.
Little Leo. And I do have to ask, are you planning for a second, or is that still up in the air?
You know what? We'll save that for another episode. How about that? But in the interim, since we're talking about Sage technology, I'm going to try to keep them technology and or accounting kind of focused. How about that? We'll get a little theme going throughout this whole thing.
Okay.
All right. So Emily, Matt, how can you tell if an accountant's an extrovert?
Are we thinking Excel? Is it somewhere in the Excel space?
Don't know.
Emily, what are you thinking?
I'm blanking. I don't know.
When the accountant's talking to you, they look at your shoes and not their own.
I do want to be a little careful with the dad jokes about accountants. You might offend somebody.
Yeah, no, I had more pointed ones loaded in the queue. I thought that was a nice safe entry into it. I'll tell you what, next episode, we'll leave accountants out of it. We'll do a technology dad joke on the next episode. How about that?
I'm not even saying you have to leave it out, leave accountants out of it, but we just got to say that not all accountants are introverts, even if that is the stereotype.
That's true, but they are really fun punching bags, especially when you look at like Hollywood. So that's always fun. No,
Wait a second. The movie The Accountant.
I watched that the other day. Actually,
And?
it was pretty good. I liked it.
Okay, so we have one cool accountant example. How many non-cool accountant examples do we have in movies and TV shows?
Every one that they have a green visor on.
Oh yeah, that's a classic. But nonetheless,
Pocket protector.
Nonetheless, this will cap it here. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for jumping on this journey with us. Really excited to get this thing rolling, and I can promise you it'll get better. It'll get smoother, and we're going to bring in some people who actually know what they're talking about in the upcoming episodes here. So thanks for joining the Unofficial Sage podcast. Again, jump on the journey. It'll get better. Look forward to talking to you next week.